Welcome to the Triathlon Nutrition Academy podcast, the show designed to serve you up evidence-based sports nutrition advice from the experts. Hi, I'm your host Taryn, accredited practicing dietitian, advanced sports dietitian, and founder of Dietitian Approved. Listen as I break down the latest evidence to give you practical, easy to digest strategies to train hard, recover faster, and perform at your best. You have so much potential, and I want to help you unlock that with the power of nutrition. Let's get into it. Joining me on the podcast today is my favourite Canadian from Ontario, Canada, Steve. And I just love the way he says about. It really takes me back to my time sliding down the slopes in Canada during the seasons I spent at Big White. But Steve's been doing triathlon for a couple of years now and is really looking to step it up and do his first 70.3 this year. He's come from a cycling background, and I really wanted to get his thoughts around what it's like eating for 3 sports instead of 1, and is a great case study that I'd love to share with you. So welcome to the podcast, Steve.
Thank you, Taryn. Favorite Canadian is about to be interviewed. But you have some new Canadians in the other group, so I'm probably going to get displaced as your favorite Canadian when other people join the TNA Academy, right? So I'll be like at the bottom of the pile after that. I don't know.
You're the OG, the original.
Oh, the GOAT? Oh, no, that's way too much.
All right, let's get into it. So who are you, Steve, and how did you fall in love with this crazy sport?
Yeah, so as I said, I came from more of a cycling background. I've always loved cycling, did a lot of cycling. So I'm 59 years old. With my cycling background, I've gotten to know lots of good friends that some of which are or have been doing triathlon. And I was kind of intrigued by the whole idea of doing the 3 sports. Never been a swimmer. I taught myself how to swim. Started doing that over a year ago and got in the pool and fumbled around, and I've been improving on that. But, it was more of a thinking about the challenge of doing those 3 sports. I started reading more about it and talking to my friends about it. And I thought this would be a pretty cool challenge to set my sights on. And it's interesting because when we talk about this stuff with our triathlon and cycling friends, our cycling friends are all about cycling. We're like, you know what? Go and do some training for swimming, biking, running, and strength. Do that all together and see how that goes for you, right? Because it's a major amount of dedication required, right? But I fell into it just in terms of my association with my cycling friends that happen to be doing a lot of triathlons.
So it wasn't a midlife crisis?
Well, I'm not at my midlife yet, so how could it be a midlife crisis, right?
Are you going to live to, 120?
I'm telling you, 59 sitting 40.
And how long have you been doing triathlon for now?
Yeah, so actually I did 3 events last year. So last year was my entry into triathlon, and I completed a sprint. Then I did the half Ironman, and then I did an Olympic near the end of the summer. And that's kind of where I knew after doing all 3 of those that I needed some help because, I always had mixed emotions when I did them because I really sucked when it came to finishing. And when I got on the run, I suffered. Like I really suffered. I walked, I ran, I hurt, I cramped and all of that. And I knew there's something like this is, so in as much as it did hurt and I did suffer, the funny thing is like, I got to do better. I want to do better with this, right? So I did the 3 last year and I finished all 3 and proud of myself for particularly doing the half Ironman in July, where when I started swimming at the beginning of 2022, being able to barely swim 50 meters in the pool and being exhausted, thinking, oh crap, they're going to pull me out of the lake with a lifeboat because I'm never going to swim 1900 meters, right?
Yeah, that's a long way for a non-swimmer.
Yeah, I mean, my swimming lessons were when I was 5 years old. My dad kind of threw me in the lake and like, let's go swimming, right? So I've always enjoy the water. But my swimming was more of a, let's go to the beach on a sunny, hot day and cool off and play around in the water. So my proudest moment up until last year was, guess what? I did that 1900 meter swim. I was like 218 per 100, but I don't care. I finished it. I got on my bike. But then with 20K to go on the bike, guess what? I'm on the side of the road cramping up. And then I hobbled back to the transition, started my run, which became a walk real fast. And I suffered on that. So I did the 3 triathlons, extremely happy, as my triathlon community is so supportive, right? I wanted to do better than I did initially, but I finished them all. And my more seasoned triathlon friends explained to me, you know what? You're one of the ones that's not sitting on the couch. doing nothing. Like you went out there and you finished it. But at the same time, like classic triathlon, where you finish it, you suffer, and you're like, okay, well, when's the next one that I can sign up for? Right. But each of those three, which were all three different distances, and on every single one of them, like I suffered on the run. And I remember you talking about you can kind of get away with crappy nutrition on the swim and on the bike, but it's going to bite you in the ass on the run. And it bit me in the ass on the run in every single one of those events. It's like the definition of insanity, right? You do the same thing over and over again, you expect a different result. So I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. So that's why we're here.
That's why we're here. So good. So you've been in the academy program for 6 months now. You're almost finished phase 2. And coming from that cycling background and getting into triathlon last year without any nutrition support, what's been the biggest thing that's changed for you in the last 6 months?
There's a lot of things. I'll just run through some of them real quick if I can. I mean, the one funny thing was I actually thought I was doing pretty well. I mean, I'm a healthy eater, generally speaking. And I know that you laughed about this, and you were the one who set me straight on this, where I was very happy way back when, 6 months ago, to tell you how, hey, I get up every morning, 5 o'clock, I have my bowl of porridge with my fruit and a little shot of maple syrup and my flaxseed and all this stuff, right? And banana. And then Taryn says, yeah, but you don't want to be eating the same thing every day. You need to be eating 30 different plant-based during the week. So one of the things that I learned is being able to prepare for and plan how and what I eat, not just from a lifestyle perspective, but more importantly, from a training perspective. And then that'll translate into a racing perspective. Like we're still in the winter here in Canada. So, it's March. Well, it's actually springtime officially yesterday, but we got lots of snow here. So I've learned a lot about the macronutrients, planning, if you're going to do a certain type of workout, and what do you eat and when before that workout, what are you putting in your body during that workout? What are you doing to recover after that workout? And so my approach on that before Triathlon Nutrition Academy was pretty haphazard, off the cuff, seat of your pants. Like sometimes I would eat something. I always had liquids when I did my training bike rides, but I've learned a lot more in terms of how to dial it in and how to properly focus on the right amount of carbohydrates and protein and whatnot, macronutrients. So it's all about being much better prepared before, during, and after doing those workouts. And I was never that prepared in that way prior to that.
I love watching the food that you eat evolve, because we have a community group for our academy members and people post food photos in there because it's encouraged, right? Food porn. I love it. And it's amazing watching what you eat and what you're sharing evolve over time. Like you're putting things in smoothies that you never thought you possibly could add to smoothies to try and increase your overall nutrient profile, because we need that as endurance athletes. Like I think that is a huge shift for somebody that, you eat really well. Like there's nothing wrong with the way that you eat, except for maybe that like cream that you put in your coffee. But we've worked on that too.
And I'll still put the cream in my coffee.
We went down to 5% from 10%, right?
That's right. Yes.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, me too. It's all good.
But getting that food right and matched to training load is one of the key things that I like to teach athletes. And that's really important. And what you ate was really good, but that didn't match training load whatsoever. It was consistently the same every single day, didn't evolve based on training demand. And that's been a huge shift for you, which has been great to see.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the variety of that food, like you mentioned, but also like I was never very good at the recovery part. And what I mean by that is there was a lot of times when I didn't really do recovery at all.
You are not alone in that.
And it's just amazing when I think about it. Like, why wasn't I doing that? Just don't know what you don't know, I guess. Sometimes I might eat something, but it wasn't even planned out as far as what does a proper recovery meal look like based upon that workout that you just did and based upon my body composition and whatnot. So you've helped us quantify how to go about preparing those foods, those meals in the right proportions of macronutrients, and also getting all the micronutrients in there too.
And how do you feel as a result of those changes? Do you feel any different? Do you feel the same?
If I were to do a really long, hard bike ride, I would be one of those people that would be lazing around on the couch for several hours after, my legs would feel like really tired. And running was worse. If I did a 1 hour run, I mean, I paid for that for the next day or two. And I actually didn't really look forward to running because I knew that what was going to happen after I did the run the next day or later that afternoon, I was going to be suffering. And I can tell you very honestly, I mean, I'd feel a lot stronger during the workouts, but I probably noticed it even more after the fact. So that, I'll get done a workout and do my recovery meal or smoothie, whatever it might be. And I'm hop in the shower and I'm ready to go. Let's go do something now. It really has made a difference.
Yeah, so you got so much time back and you're not risking getting divorced, right?
Let's hope not after 30 years of being married.
Yeah, well, triathlon does that to families. So you got to watch that. Are there any big misconceptions or myths that you've learned about endurance nutrition? Maybe it's from cycling, maybe it's from dabbling in triathlon and having lots of noisy voices around you that I've busted over the last 6 months.
I would say the thing that has resonated with me, and it comes back in our power hours and masterclass, I think, it's the myth, I guess, that carbs are evil. Don't eat too much carbs. You're going to get fat or that sort of thing. And I was never one to completely cut out carbs. But there was a time in the last couple of years where I consciously backed off. I didn't want to eat potatoes. I didn't want to eat rice. I didn't want to eat white pasta because I thought I'm going to gain too much weight and this will be bad. I need to be a really super thin person. If I'm going to do these triathlons and be successful and get PBs, I got to back off this. So I was concerned. Again, I wasn't extreme. It wasn't that I didn't cut them out altogether, but I dialed them way back. And so what I've learned in the program is, no, it's okay. You need carbs is the best fuel for endurance athletes. You need carbs. Carbs can be your friend and you're not going to get fat because we're not sedentary. We're not sitting on the couch watching TV, right? So if you're doing that, maybe carbs are bad, but I don't think that applies to us. So that was one thing that I think if I walk away, if I never came back, I would always know that it's okay. Eat the carbs. You need the carbs. We've learned so much about carbs, and I mentioned potatoes and rice and pasta, but there's, all the other, like the liquid kind of stuff and whatnot. So that was one thing. And maybe what goes along with that is that over the years, you get a lot of advice from your friends, right? And somebody will say to you, hey, here's what I'm doing. This really works good. You should do this. Why don't you try that? Have you tried this? You should do that. And I was guilty of that sometimes. I mean, I'm my own person, but at the same time, I think, well, if I'm having an issue with my, say, cramping and whatnot, and somebody's saying, well, this is what I do. I mentioned this one time too, where when I finished that Muskoka Ironman 70.3, when I cramped up, and this one triathlete said, well, are you taking magnesium supplements? And I said, well, no, but I didn't know anything about magnesium. And she said, well, no, I take magnesium all the time. It'll prevent cramping. So guess what I did, Karen? You know what I did? I went and bought a bottle of this stuff. And that was before joining the program here. And of course, then I told you all about the magnesium. And of course, you were like, what the hell are you doing, Duquette? You don't need magnesium. If you're taking all the proper foods and natural foods and blah, 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 you don't need this stuff.
Blah, blah, blah. I love that that's how you paraphrase what I say.
We just put you into a little box, blah, blah, blah. That's all you need to know.
What would Taryn say?
Well, I love it. We're going to write a book about that someday. But you get everybody means well. The triathlon community are super supportive. I love the community. Everybody wants you to do well. Everybody's so supportive. It's not about me beating you. It's about us doing great together, right? Whether I finish last or you finish last, doesn't matter. So you get all this advice. And I remember the day before my Ironman race, and one of my friends he's a phenomenal triathlete, and he qualified for the Worlds and did great. And he was telling me what he did before the race and during the race, that when he went and did his qualifying race. And of course, oh yeah, okay, well, I mean, if it worked for him, it must work for me, right? Well, not necessarily. So I've learned to not rely on that. And when people talk to me about that stuff, it's like I take it with a grain of salt, because I also now, I think I'm much better equipped with science-based information which is this program. It's not something you thought about that you say, well, this is going to work, but you haven't really tested it. Well, we know this from science and experience and data that this stuff is true and it works. So I'm happy to do that. So a couple of things were just the carbs are not evil. Probably shouldn't take all the advice from your well-meaning friends and other athletes, right? And I always kind of felt like, I need to be the leanest person possible to be successful. And I will admit to you that I'm probably a few pounds heavier than I was 6 or 8 months ago, but my workouts are much better. I feel much stronger. My numbers are better. Like when I'm running, I'm amazed at myself because I'm doing these runs and I think, well, that's not me. I didn't do that run. Like my heartbeat can't be that low and I can't be that fast. Now I'm talking relative terms here. I'm not like a super fast runner, but relative to what I did before, I'm much better. And so that's been a real interesting thing to observe.
Have you put on muscle though? That's not body fat that's increased. I know you're in winter and you may have put on a bit of winter pudding, but do you think that including the performance gains have been because of muscle tissue?
Yeah, most definitely. I'm very confident that it's not an issue of putting on fat.
Belt buckle still the same belt hole?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for saying that because I used to weigh myself every day and I don't do that anymore. But it's the belt loop. And you're right, it hasn't changed.
Yeah, I think that's really important because we equate mass, so a number on the scales, as body fat. Those fluctuations, we're like, oh crap, I've put on fat or I've lost fat. And it's honestly most often not. Like it's changes in muscle tissue. It's changes in our hydration status. It's changes in how much fiber we have in our whole gastrointestinal tract. Like, is there more bulk in there because you're eating more plant-based foods? So it's really important to make that distinction. And for a lot of athletes, that's something that they should kind of work on in their mindset, is that weight on the scales, numbers on the scales, does not necessarily equate to increasing body fat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to weigh myself daily, like I said. What I came to realize was that from one day to the next, there was some pretty serious fluctuations. And I thought, what the heck is going on, man? So that was sort of, I don't know what the word is, but...
A mindfuck?
Yeah, that's it.
That's the Australian term for you. I'm not sure what the PC term is.
I'd say that's a Canadian term too.
We'll have to make this episode explicit.
Yeah, right. 18 plus.
Are you a triathlete sick of fumbling around in the dark with your nutrition? Is nutrition the missing link in helping you reach your goals? And do you want to maximize your training efforts and level up your performance? Of course you do. Come and join me for free at Fuel School. It's a free 3-day live and online nutrition training week. And I've designed it to give you the nutritional edge in 2024 and lay the foundation of your day-to-day fueling and race nutrition. It's on the 14th to the 16th of January, 9 a.m. Brisbane time, so Australian Eastern Standard Time every day, which is 3 p.m. PST, 5 p.m. CST and 6 p.m. EST on the 13th to the 15th of January. To register, head to fuel.school. Yep, www.fuel.school. Whether you're a seasoned triathlete or just starting your nutrition journey, this free event is your opportunity to learn from an advanced sports dietitian and triathlon nutrition specialist and transform the way you approach your nutrition for 2024. Fuel.school, it's free. I'll see you there.
Yeah, so I got away from weighing myself. I still weigh myself the odd time. But yeah, the belt buckle thing is what I go by. Thank you for saying that.
I think that's a good method to use because it doesn't fluctuate day to day, and then we're not getting in our head and getting caught up in those numbers shifting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's some of the things you've learned and some really good takeaway points there. Like carbs are not bad. We just need to understand how to harness the power of carbohydrates so that we're eating strategically to support different types of training days. I think that's really important for triathlon because no two training days are the same, are they? We're not like a gym goer that maybe does 5 gym days a week and 2 rest days and you can eat relatively stable through that. Like we have 6-hour ride days and we have 1-hour run days, and their energy expenditure and the tax on the body is so different for those types of training sessions. So eating to support the work is very, very important if you want to survive. What are you focusing on with your nutrition now, Steve?
As I mentioned, we're getting towards the end of March. So this has been like off season for Canadians, you might as well say. I'm starting to think about the racing. So I've signed up for that same Muskoka Half Ironman again, and I'm going to sign up for a few more events. So I'm starting to focus on some of the stuff that we learned in phase 2 recently with regards to carbohydrate loading and multiple transportable carbohydrates, if I got that terminology correct.
Well done. Yep.
Sweat testing. So I'm focusing or beginning to take more note of what I'm going to be doing on race day or leading up to and on race day and so on. And again, like I loved when I learned from you that, oh, well, I had a big plate of spaghetti on Friday night before the race on Saturday morning. Well, yeah, that's not carbohydrate loading, you dumbass. And it was very eye-opening to realize just how much that you need to put into your body to properly load those carbohydrates in ahead of time. So I'm focusing on working on developing my carbohydrate loading strategy. We just recently talked about the multiple transportable carbohydrates. That's a mouthful. I'm quite interested in that. And I'm guilty of using products that I just thought, well, it's a gel. It's got some carbs in it. It's got 100 calories or whatever. And you kind of wonder why you're not performing or getting the results that you were hoping for, because I think that's a big part of why. You think about your body chemistry and so on. Working towards what I need to be doing when I'm going to actually be doing these races and practicing and implementing those things ahead of time. Because as Taryn says, you don't try new shit on race day. You need to do this and try this before and ahead of time. So
Without the swearing, but yes.
No, I think you said that actually.
Definitely explicit episode.
So the sweat testing for me, I knew that it was a heavy sweater, just qualitatively, like looking at the puddle of liquid on the floor, but actually going through that process where we learned how to do a sweat test, right? So I've done it a few times. I was like, wow, this is incredible. And so by doing that, realizing that here's the volume of liquid and frequency, like here's how many milliliters of fluids you need to take in per hour so that you don't dehydrate. And I've never quantified that. Of course, I've been guilty of I'm chucking in all this fancy product into my water bottles. I should be ready to roll, right? And again, I think about my races last summer, and I really truly believe that part of the reason why I didn't perform the way that I thought was due to some of that. So recognizing, like, from the beginning of this program where it's all about fundamentals and just kind of like we're in grade 1 and you're teaching us, here's what you do, to we're kind of in high school now, where we're more independent and we can do some stuff where we know we've got the building blocks. And I'm using those building blocks now to better plan for what's coming ahead.
Yeah, amazing. It's like you've progressed to the next level. One of the things I encourage everyone in the program to do is to go back and start it again, because you will take in so much more information the second pass with the more advanced knowledge that you have by the end of the program. And then you become like a super triathlete.
Absolutely, 100%. I will be going back through because, frankly, there is so much in there. There's the masterclass, and then there's the power hour where we get to banter back and forth and have questions going back and forth and whatnot. It's a wonderful learning opportunity that way. But at the same time, it's almost overwhelming how much there is there. It's kind of like when I watch a movie. I'll watch the movie a second time, think, oh, geez, I don't remember that part.
Yeah, the human brain is amazing like that, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, there's just an immense volume of material and content in there. So I totally plan on going back. And I think if I'm right, we've got like a break now coming up. So that'll be the time to go back and, re-listen. And I mean, I print all the worksheets and stuff. And again, there's so much, right? But it's exciting. It's like going to school. Really is. I guess that's supposed to be a compliment in there. It's nutrition
right.
school. There you go.
Yeah. We do have 4 weeks of like rest adaptation in between phases, just to help you soak in all that information before we then move on to the next bit. Because yeah, you're right, it is overwhelming. There is so much to learn about triathlon nutrition. Like, we have 36 masterclasses in the Academy program. It goes for 9 months. And that still doesn't cover everything that you need to know.
Yeah, I'm excited just because I'm looking forward to when I do my races, because, I've got some goals. I want to do better than I did last year. but also think that it's this is like a multi-year thing, right? It's not a one and done, right? This is like a lifestyle. And so the more that you do this and the more you practice it, the more it becomes good habit, right?
Amen. I hope that I set you up with the knowledge and skills to take this with you forever. That's my goal. Like, I want to equip triathletes to be independent and have that knowledge so that you can do your own nutrition in a way on the fly without having to pay for expensive apps or keep forking out money for someone to write you a plan. I'm going to teach you how to do that yourself, which I think is so much more powerful. So what have you got coming up, Steve? So you've got 70.3 this year. What's next on the cards for you? I know we've talked about the big full distance word before. What's the grand plans?
So right now, I've signed up for that Muskoka 70.3, which is the same one that I did last year, because I've got unfinished business on that one, right?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing that huge shift in time this time.
There you go. Me too. There's a race a few weeks before that race that I'm going to sign up. It's got a 2,000 meter swim, a 56K bike, and a 15K run. So it's kind of like a hybrid between a Olympic and a half. So I'd like to do, that'll almost be like a warm up, if you will, to doing the Muskoka Half Ironman. So then July is the Muskoka Half Ironman. And then there's another half in, I think it's late August or early September. It's a 2,000 meter swim and then a 90K bike and a half marathon. And then I'm toying around, and maybe you and I can talk about this later. You can tell me I'm crazy or not, but there's the Florida 70.3, December 10th, I believe. So I don't know if I'm biting off more than I can chew in doing 4 of those. So the Florida thing may not happen, but I like the idea of going to Florida in December just because it'll be warmer than it is at home here in December.
Maybe you could just go for a holiday instead of having to do a 70.3 thrown in the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but you know what triathletes are like, right? Your holiday is doing the race and then the holiday.
Totally. Yeah.
Right?
It needs to be a tax deduction.
Absolutely. I can work that out. I got to have a client down there somewhere.
Put some business meetings in there.
Absolutely. And then as you mentioned or alluded to, and you and I have talked about this, some of my triathlete friends are trying to push me to do a full Ironman, but I've decided that I'm not ready for that. I'm going to do this, but I'm very seriously thinking about jumping on and doing that full next year, make that a focus, right? So in and amongst there, I'm still love my biking. And so there's a gravel bike race coming up at the end of April. We're not going too hard at that. It's not like we're going out there to try to win something. It's just more of for us, it's early season, right? So it'll just be it's like a 110K gravel race. So that'll be fun.
That sounds good, Steve. Like, it's definitely a triathlete thing. They just it's like, what's next? What's next? And what's next? How do we go bigger? How do we go faster? How do we go longer? But I think you're smart and focusing on the 70.3 distance for a little bit until you can build up your swimming, build up your running, and get all of the nutritional foundations right around that so that you can go and have a great Ironman distance event rather than do what you did last year and suffer through a 70.3. Like, you did it and you finished it, which is a true testament to you, but it was pretty not enjoyable. And you wouldn't want to do that for a full distance. So yeah, just hold the horses. Hold your horses. Do you say that over there?
Yeah, hold your horses. I like to use the slow down Seabiscuit.
Classic.
You know Seabiscuit, right? From the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Funny.
Slow down Seabiscuit. And I was going to add one last thing, and I don't know if you could fit this in here, but in terms of myths and misconceptions and whatnot, and I completely missed saying this, but you talk about the 4th leg of triathlon being nutrition. And you've talked about the 1%ers, I think is how you describe it, and I'm guilty of this, where I love my gadgets. Like, I like my Garmin watch, and I like my Garmin cycling computer and my power meter and my fancy bike and whatnot. But it's not much good to you if you're not prepared physically for the race. You got to make sure that you get that nutrition in order first, and you can have a crappy bike and probably still do better than what I did on a good bike with proper nutrition.
Amen, Steve. So well said.
Yeah, we've got some goals for this year with the races, and we'll see how it goes. But I feel good that I'm being methodical and having a process, right? We do that with our training, right? Like, we have all these structured training programs. Why don't we have a structured nutrition program? Like, it's like the obvious, but it's not for most people. I have not yet met anybody that, when I've talked to them in the last year, where they said, oh yeah, I'm doing this nutrition program for my endurance sports. People don't talk about that. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is crazy. I'm trying to change that landscape though, right? That's my passion, is trying to educate as many triathletes as possible how to eat for not one, but 3 sports, because we're all high achievers. But you really can get it so wrong. It's not that hard to get it right with a bit of information too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your journey with me, Steve. I've loved all of the out and abouts. I've counted so many on the podcast. And if you are listening and you're not on our waitlist for the Academy program, then you're going to want to do that so you can get all these mass performance gains like my friend Steve here. Make sure you go to dietitianapproved.com/academy. I am doing a sneaky little waitlist opening next week. If you have been watching along for a little while and want to kind of get a sneaky entry in April, but you have to be on the waitlist. It's not a big open to the public type opening. So dietitianapproved.com/academy. Make sure you're on the waitlist to hear all about that. Thank you so much, Steve, and for sharing your supercharged journey with us. I love chatting with you. As always, my favorite Canadian.
It's been a real pleasure. I was glad to come on and share what I've got going on. So much appreciated. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Triathlon Nutrition Academy podcast. I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions or want to share with me what you've learnt, email me at podcast@dietitianapproved.com. You could also spread the word by leaving me a review and taking a screenshot of you listening to the show. Don't forget to tag me on social media at dietitian.approved so I can give you a shout out too. If you want to learn more about what we do, head to dietitianapproved.com. And if you want to learn more about the Triathlon Nutrition Academy program, head to dietitianapproved.com/academy. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to helping you smash it in the 4th leg. Nutrition!